of the area, because
Example, one of the things I would like to suggest is instead of the first 10 days being to appeal, make the first 10 days the period of time to request an explanation, right? So, and that way you're not overwhelming
It can only be that quick for everything. We'd be in good shape.
the arborist, but we're also not saying you have to go find a certified all within 10 days. Oh, and by the way, get them to come to a meeting too, right? Like that seems like a lot, yeah. So just like kind of subtle things, really. Because, and again, I don't think anyone did anything wrong.
Can't sign. I'll sign after the meeting.
7 o'clock. Call this meeting to order. Reflection and the Pledge of Allegiance. Tammy?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Back, Lori Wasowicki. Would you call the roll, please?
Broad, Colaszo, Devonter,
Here.
Ford, Herring, Kratza, Lancaster, Newell, Smith, Steelman, Taylor.
Are there any additions or changes to the agenda? Minutes of the council meeting from February 8th. Move. Is there any discussion? Those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Similarly, you have the minutes of the work session from February 15th. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Seconded. Is there any discussion of those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Also, we have the financial report for January. Is there a motion to approve that?
So move.
Second.
Is there any discussion of the financial report? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Now, time for public participation. Please, as is our custom, state your name and address.
I'm Michael Driscoll, president of IUP. That's probably good enough for the address. Chair Broad, Mr. Mayor, council members, it's a pleasure to be with you this evening. Indiana is a very special place, and Becky and I continue to enjoy living here among you. The community is filled with very kind and generous people who work hard and who care deeply about this community. You know, way too often, towns hosting colleges and universities, and the universities they host sometimes end up in a bit of an uncomfortable relationship. I've heard that town-gown relations sort of compared to having 10,000 of your closest relatives moving in with you for an extended period. There will necessarily be just a little pushing and shoving as people get used to each other and live together. It's very important to us at IUP that our students and families feel safe and welcome at IUP and in our community in Indiana, and that our students and their visitors are good community citizens while they are here. We join the community in sharing some concerns about student and visitor behaviors in the past. Because of the willingness of our community leaders to work together to address these concerns. We are in a much better place today where we have processes and groups in place to address those concerns to the benefit of both the community and the university. As president of IUP, I am extremely pleased to re-engage with Indiana Borough Council with a regular special presence at Borough Council meetings, and that the council is willing to take the actions needed to make that happen. Thank you. I'm personally supportive of this initiative, and I assure you this whole university supports it as well. And we will continue to be pleased to work closely with our key community partners, including Indiana Borough. As an Indiana native who has worked with the community prior to her time at IUP, Assistant Vice President for Alumni and Constituent Engagement, Jennifer Dunsmore, is an excellent choice for this role. I want to thank Jen for her willingness to serve in this non-voting position with you. And I thank you so very much for welcoming her as IUP's representative to Indiana Borough Council. Thank you very much. Jen?
Give Jennifer a chance to formally introduce herself when we get to her section in the agenda, but we all welcome you. Thank you so much. Thank you all very much.
Oh, she gets a name tag. I still don't have a name tag. Can I just?
Thank you. My name is Benjamin Blowers. I live at 31 South 12th Street here in the borough. And thank you for the opportunity to express my opposition tonight to any proposal to decriminalize marijuana. I speak to you as a husband, a father of 3 children, and a pastor of a church here in the borough. I believe that decriminalizing marijuana sends the wrong message, especially to our children and our youth. At the council meeting where the vote was taken to authorize the solicitor to draft an ordinance in this regard, one of the reasons given was that IUP students come to our community to attend the university, and some end up leaving with criminal records as a result of being charged with possessing small amounts of marijuana. It's not a real convincing argument in my opinion, but I think there is a simple, fair, and a clear way, not just for IUP students, but everyone in our community to leave here without a criminal record, and that's simply to obey the laws. At that same meeting, it was noted that the current law gives first-time offenders caught with small amounts of marijuana, and I quote, "a slap on the wrist." Now it seems in this attempt, we're not content with the slap on the wrist. Maybe some think a pat on the back is more appropriate. I've also heard it mentioned there's other municipalities across Pennsylvania passing similar ordinances and that we should copy that. As I've looked at that list, I'm not convinced, in my personal opinion, we want to become like Allentown and Erie and Harrisburg and Lancaster and Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, State College, York, and several others. It's also my opinion that the consideration of this right at the start of a new council term shows somewhat of a lack of understanding and priority of what we can do together to make the borough better. When my family has personally watched multiple drug raids out our house windows, when we watch drug deals periodically in our neighborhood, a few years ago when a man is shot and goes unconscious on our church property and we're left to clean up the blood, when I have neighbors whose basements are filled with sewage and water after strong rainstorms, and yet one of the first topics really debated this year and has continued to be a topic, at least leading up to now, is the marijuana decriminalization. To me, it appears our priorities could be better, that there are many profitable things we could be doing together to make Indiana an even better place to live. I know not everyone agrees with my opinion on this topic, and that's fine. That's what makes America so great, that we can each civilly share our opinions. So thank you for the opportunity you've given me tonight as a resident and a voter of the borough to share my opposition. And I urge council to cease consideration of this and focus on things to make our borough a better place. And I want to personally thank all of you for stepping up and being willing to serve on borough council. We thank you and God bless you all.
Is there anyone else? Tammy, go ahead. You know the drill.
Yes, I do. Tammy Curry, White Township. With all that's going on worldwide, nationally, statewide, and locally, do we honestly feel that this is the time And it's so important to decriminalize. I just want to know, do you truly feel that this will stop black market sales of marijuana that's sometimes often laced with fentanyl or ketamine? Do you truly feel this will halt any drug-related crimes such as the ones that have been occurring in the past few years with shootings involved and assaults involved? And most particularly those that are related to IUP. And do you think it won't increase drug use for IUP students and their visitors, or for high school students or middle school students? Do you think it won't cause conflicts in the court system with differing fines and penalties that may be appealed? If a borough officer pulls somebody over and that they get a citation, state police trooper pulls somebody over, their fines are higher. I can see a conflict down the road in the court system. I'm kind of disappointed that President Driscoll did not address this subject, but I do appreciate his presence, and I hope that he listens to those that are opposed. But I want to know, have you truly given any of this true thought? Thank you.
Hey, please, Blanchard, state your name and address and limit this up to 3 minutes.
My name is John Blanchard. I reside in Indiana Borough. Let me start off by saying I'm not anti-police. I am pro-good police. I'd like to talk a little bit about police accountability and transparency. I've personally had my civil rights violated by members of the Indiana Borough Police Department, including supervisors and the chief of police himself. When complaints have been made, the department has investigated itself and decided there were no policy violations. When public records have been requested, they've either been heavily redacted or denied completely. Even simple requests like officer salaries, disciplinary records, standard department policy have been kept private. I'd like to use this opportunity to publicly express my disappointment in the police department and ask them to be better. We need some policies in place to keep this department accountable to the community that they serve. Here are a few suggestions. Make public records public. Stop hiding public information from the public. FOIA requests, Freedom of Information Act request forms and complaint forms should be readily available in the public lobby of the municipal building. When a citizen would like to make a complaint against a public official, they should not have to go speak to other public officials to do so. Finally, stop allowing the police department to investigate themselves. Thank you.
We will take this under consideration. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak to us at this point? We don't need an executive session as far as I know. I'm aware of. So we'll go to committee reports.
Doing these now? Oh, under public comment, the letters.
Oh, yes.
Oh, we're going to do these
Yes.
letters? Oh, okay. We have received a number of letters from the community. On the one that just- There was a letter addressed to the Borough Council from the Indiana Area School District. It's long, I think. Basically, they're again it. The Indiana Area School District Board of Directors would like to take this opportunity to clarify a position on the borough's deliberations regarding a draft ordinance on the decriminalization of marijuana. The IASD Board of Directors, while we respect your authority and service to the community, believe that this ordinance is not in the best interest of our schools. As such, we oppose the drafting of this ordinance and respectfully request that you reconsider the pace at which you are pursuing this bill to allow more time, input, and perspectives from the various stakeholders in the community. If we're going any slower, we're going to go backwards. But we are hopeful, that was an aside, that was not in the letter, in case you hadn't picked up on that. We are hopeful that you respect the notion that we, IASD, have a fundamental duty to keep our students safe. This includes being safe from drugs to the best of our ability. The draft language you are considering can have a profound impact on our own policies and procedures, as well as send multiple mixed messages to our families. For example, adolescent marijuana use has been shown in several large studies to lower IQ scores 6 to 8 points on average. And there are 2 such studies cited, but not appropriately, but you can find them. I can give you the version of a citation that they have here, if you'd like. Its use has also been shown to unmask latent schizophrenia in the same population. And one other study is mentioned. Reviewing local and county data from the Pennsylvania Youth Survey, PAYS, there are some trends worth discussing regarding alcohol, drug, and tobacco vaping use as a collective group. See below for a simple chart that illustrates the use in Indiana County. And there's a chart here that is anything but simple, and I can't quite figure it out, but I don't have a PhD in the social sciences, so maybe one of my colleagues can. We are hopeful you can have further conversations about the data and how we can work together to provide more protective factors for our students and families while lowering the number of risk factors our students are faced with on a daily basis. We're respectfully asking that you continue to include all stakeholders in this process and at the very least carve out the school zones in the draft language. We have a different set of policies and expectations as a district regarding state-established drug-free school zones, and we want this to be specifically enumerated in the borough's language. Furthermore, we have not had time to discuss the impacts the proposed ordinance would have on our school district, as we have not seen the draft ordinance at this time. In a recent article in the Gazette, it was mentioned that the school's concerns have been addressed, but we do not believe that it is an accurate statement, as we never provided an opportunity. We never provided an opportunity to review the specific carve-out language we requested. No, we didn't. We did attend the meeting and asked for the carve-out, but that has been the extent of our involvement. Once the requested information is in our possession, we would like to present it to our entire board of school directors for review. We think one could argue that drug use, legal or not, in public spaces is always a serious concern. Our goal is not to take a position of whether or not the rules are just or appropriate from a legal sense. Rather, we would like to view this matter from a safety standpoint for our students. We are simply trying to work with our partners to keep students and staff safe. The pandemic, as you are well aware, has brought a tremendous amount of mental health and trauma challenges, and we need to address these from an aligned and collective effort. We were hopeful that the borough would discuss more solutions to keep our community safe and our residents active in pro-social and healthy behaviors. It is also important to note that we have several schools that are not located in the borough, and we would hate to see a different set of rules for the schools in the borough and for those which are not. Consistency in our policies and expectations as a district is important. We are not saying we know or can recommend exactly what the penalty should be, but we should all work together to keep the safety of our children as a priority to the fullest extent possible when making these decisions. We are simply asking that you recognize this decision will affect our safety efforts and that you go slow to go fast by involving all stakeholders in this conversation. And then there's some details. I think I've read enough. You get the gist of what they're saying. We don't usually comment during public comment, so I'm not going to comment. But comments do come to mind.
Read these couple.
Subject.
These under public comment we received that was forwarded on to the borough, and I'm going to read them in order that we received them. On Wednesday, January 5th, from Mike Peterson, his email read, "I've heard a Dunkin' Donuts was proposed on 5th and Philly Street. Do you have any updates. We responded with the updates is in the process. At meetings, we informed him of the monthly meetings and sent him the schedule. He said, thanks, I personally welcome into our community great coffee and other items. The next one we received on Sunday, February 6th, from Aaliyah Hendricks. Dear Borough President Broad and council members, we live in the second ward, and the move to allow Dunkin' Donuts to build with a design that goes against the current guidelines for the borough is deeply disappointing. We are writing to express that we do not think that this Dunkin' Donuts plan as proposed should go forward and urge you to vote no. We are particularly concerned about the impact on students walking to school, which includes our children. It's already a busy intersection without adding parking that impacts both walkers and those driving. We want to see the council consider the voices of those in the neighborhood and the wider borough, as well as the borough own commitment to sustainable and walkable friendly infrastructure plan. There are other designs options that would not present the store from being in that location, even as we are not excited about a chain coffee shop being added where we already have an excellent local business. At this point, we just want to see a different design proposed that will not put our children and community members at risk when walking. Thank you, Leah Hendricks, Penelope Vicky Hendricks, second ward resident. This one came on Sunday, February 6th from Amanda Poole. Dear Peter, thank you for all your hard work on behalf of our borough. I'm writing to express my concern about the fast food drive-through that is planned to block from my home on a walking route to school in violation of our long-term plan and recommendations of our planning commission. I'm in favor of development in the part of our downtown, but I'm in favor of smart developments in line with our values and plans that work for our community. The planned fast food drive-through clearly fails on all of these fronts. The design as currently stands in its entirety shaped by the desire to turn a quick profit and show no regards to our downtown area properties, culture, and the safety of our community. It's the kind of facility that does not belong in the vibrant downtown where walkability is the priority. There is no way to access facility on foot without weaving through 2 lanes of traffic, encircling the building, exiting and entering from 3 streets. With idling cars at peak times of travel, this design is completely ableist. It does not consider the needs and safety of people who may have any mobile issues, the people with strollers, children, the elders. It also does not consider the safety of drivers, pedestrians, and cyclists on 5th Street. We have numerous kids who walk to school there and now will have an extra 2-way road to navigate next to an alley Gompers where visibility is already a problem. Dunkin' has other development models out there that would fit in downtown area. Our community apparently isn't good enough for these. Why aren't our elected borough officials working on the other interests here, advocating for smart development, what fits in our development design plan? Also, not believe that our community deserves better than this. I have heard you say that you feel there is no legal reason to deny the request to make exemptions and remove current infrastructure in the name of this cheap development. If that is the case, why do we even have a zoning or planning commission at all? The removal of the 2 parking places you will be voting on includes the removal of 4 feet of sidewalk. This falls in the face of our design standards, and if you should absolutely vote against this. Indiana deserves better. Please represent the interests of our community by refusing to allow the removal of sidewalks downtown, demand a better design, one that prioritizes safety, walkability, and would enhance rather than erode what makes our downtown special and welcome. Peter, you and I have are on the same side of most issues. I trust you care about our community and you will do the right thing. Amanda Poole. Sunday, February 27th, from Linda Blakely. Dear Ms. Cephas, thank you for hearing my concerns about planning, not feeling Duncan should work at Fifth and Philly Street and being willing to share my concerns with others. I would hope anyone in the Indiana Borough would have the desire to see Indiana grow and prosper. We do have a variety of wonderful businesses where many have the competition in that area. Examples, pizza, tattoos, bars, restaurants, banks. However, I do not notice very many that might offer possibilities of early in the day. In my opinion, it would be nice to see the parking meters full, helping to pay salaries, which more people in town. I would would also like to see more people in town, but with that thought, I would prefer it not be because of council has approved a recreational marijuana. As for the historic building, Indiana has other buildings on Philadelphia Street that are historic. Some need much reservation. Some areas are some are unoccupied, and the last one has paneled windows. It would be nice if the borough could work with Duncan and came up with a building that would blend. But what does blend look like? We have many different types of buildings on Philadelphia Street. A new clean building would improve the look on the corner. It would be a business that might help Indiana avoid becoming more of a ghost town. Getting everyone to agree on what business should allow in Indiana will never happen, but it seems that some looking glass is not being used in all situations and for the best interest of all Indiana Borough residents. That's, I get, Linda Blakely. This one came on March 7th from Darcy Analyst Smith. Is that from the Anselment? Good morning. I would like to comment on the proposed Dunkin' going next door to my office. Having Dunkin' close will bring more business to my side of town. 7th Street is the busiest area in Philadelphia, and the idea that people might travel down my way is exciting. Any business going in on downtown Philadelphia Street is good for downtown. A business with a proven success rate is even better. Casey Newell called me last week and asked my opinion. She informed me that the plan proposed, including moving a light post further towards the front of my building, that does not concern me at all. Even if it was right in the center of my building, it would be welcome trade-off for the exposure my building would be getting with a new Dunkin' next door. She also let me know that would be losing the parking spots. Again, this is not a concern of mine. I would be honest with the thought of having Dunkin' next door has given me the push to consider how to make the outside of my building and my lot look nicer. Several patients know about the proposed before I did express their excitement of having the drive-through coffee shop downtown and not having to drive across town to the Dunkin' is more business to downtown or sprucing up the side of town. It's exciting to hear their excitement. I'm definitely in favor of the Dunkin' going next door to me, and would certainly boost exposure to my business. Feel free to contact me. I'll leave that out. If you have any further questions, concerns I may not be aware of, thank you for your interest in my opinion. This one came on March 7th from Chris Bruns. In response to our conversation, and it was forwarded on from Councilman Knoll. In response to our conversation, I would like to follow up with you regarding the removal of the parking spaces on Philadelphia and Fifth. While I appreciate the share and concern of the Borough Council members and any loss of parking that negatively affects Brunzies, I do not want to let the loss of 4 parking spaces prevent a new business from entering a downtown community. Other factors bring to me this conclusions that we recently purchased a property adjacent to Brunzies and have preliminary plans to expand our dining kitchen area with also adding more parking spaces for our business. I appreciate the thought discussion among Borough Council members when making decisions that affect local and businesses. I look forward to the continued growth in our downtown Indiana. Chris Bruns.
Yeah, a letter from former council member, former member of the zoning board. However, it's got 4 points, and the first 3 are predicated on the notion that variances have or may be granted and no variances have been requested. What we did, I don't know what word was used in the paper, but it was a conditional use. It was not a variance. Those are legally different things. But I will read his last point. He says, I make an educated guess that Dunkin' Donuts has a corporate business model that mandates both drive-through and parking in front of the business. This model may be appropriate for thoroughfares on the edge of a town, I think Oakland Avenue, but not for a town center. It should be up to them to adapt to reasonable community standards and not the other way around. And that letter was dated the 2nd of March. Anything else? Public comments. All right, now.
Under the fee schedule, we got some action items.
We have the fee schedule. Items, Dunkin' Donuts, so. We're gonna be having some, the fee schedule and a couple of other motions coming up.
We're actually.
This is right now. This is the appropriate time for that to happen.
Oh, okay. So first one is the fee schedule. And the suggested motion.
Fee schedule attached to in your packet. The admin committee is moving to approve. Fee schedule. Doesn't need a second because it's coming from a committee.
For all the fees in the.
Is there a discussion of the fee schedule? All in favor of approving the 2022 fee schedule, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
And the second one is the Dunkin' Donuts for the parking spaces. The suggested motion is to approve the removal of the 2 parking spaces on South Fifth Street and the 2 other spaces on Philadelphia Street.
Is there a discussion of this motion?
I'd like to make a motion to divide that motion and to consider separately the parking meters on Philadelphia Street and the parking meters on South Fifth Street.
Is there a second to that? Discussion of this motion.
Yeah, what's the benefit of?
Because, so the benefit is that they're 2 different streets, right? And the majority of the concerns that I've heard from the community hinge on the impacts on South Fifth Street. And so I'm going to be in favor of keeping South Fifth Street as is, and basically compromising on this in terms of giving up the parking meters that the borough gets revenue from on Philadelphia Street, but keeping our parking meters on South Fifth Street. I don't want to vote against the whole thing. And so that's why I'd like to split it.
So how much do those meters generate-ish? Have we got those statistics or no?
Like, yes.
$400 a year.
If all 4 meters, so all
Oh,
4
okay.
together, so 200, like.
I just wondered if everybody wanted to know that answer.
200 each.
I understand that folks like to separate those issues, but that's how folks in my neighborhood are telling me that don't let those 2 spots go, because that means we're gonna lose 40 feet of sidewalk.
on this motion to separate them first? Because I think we'll get into a bigger discussion after they're separated. Yeah,
On the motion to separate only.
Which is what I'm saying. The
Right.
reason to separate is because that, I don't know, too, most of the complaints have been about the Fifth Street entrance. And so that's why it's important to separate them.
discussion after they're separated.
And what would be the upside of keeping them together instead of separating? What is easy?
Gerald, you might know the answer to this. Is the concern in general driving onto Fifth Street, or is it turning left onto Fifth Street?
It's the removal of the sidewalk and the putting in a two-way street. So in any of the, in any way, like, I think both from our concern for the neighborhood, and I think from this borough as well, has a many-year commitment to improving pedestrian access. So in fact, I think 3 years ago, Public Works was on a mission to build sidewalks somewhere. So the idea that we'd be approving something that removes sidewalks that are used.
May I step in here? I don't see how any sidewalk is removed here. As I've been walking around town, I've been looking, every place there is a vehicle entrance. And the sidewalk goes right there. Vehicles drive over the sidewalk. Yes, it's not a protected sidewalk any longer.
Okay, so that's why those meters are important, and that's why they're related, because they are protecting that sidewalk.
But a sidewalk does not disappear.
Those meters protect that sidewalk.
This and then, yeah, let's call the question here and deal with this first.
The vote now is on simply whether to separate this into two motions. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay?
Nay.
Better do a roll call.
A roll call.
A roll call.
With me. Broad,
Yes.
No for now.
Yes.
From all votes on this Dunkin' Donuts matter due to, I believe, a prior business relationship with the company involved.
Smith,
Yes.
Steelman,
Yes.
Taylor. And Warnock. 7 yes, 1 abstain.
Well, an abstention is a no vote, so 7 yes and 5 no, I guess.
Correct.
I'm someone's solicitor, is his commercial, is his business relationship with the company this reason to abstain? I know the law is very strict on when you can abstain.
Well, the general rule is if there's a potential pecuniary benefit, and I believe it would be his decision whether to abstain or not to.
Okay,
So,
I just wanted to make sure.
yeah,
Okay, so we have now divided it. So we are now going to discuss parking meters on Philadelphia Street first.
I see no issue. The business affected she has submitted a letter saying she is not concerned.
Two things, one of which is Dr. Anselman's probably not particularly concerned because her business owns the parking lot next to it and behind it. So she very rarely has patients parking out on Philadelphia. It doesn't really matter to her one way or the other. I think one thing that I'm noticing in the discussions that we've had so far is that we seem to be thinking as if the Dunkin' Donuts doesn't have this drive-through option, there isn't going to be a Dunkin' Donuts, but it's perfectly possible for a Dunkin' Donuts to be constructed that is a walk-in facility. I have walked into Dunkin' Donuts that didn't have a drive-through anywhere within 25 miles of them. and they seemed to be doing a land office business just the same. And frankly, I like better the idea of a walk-in Dunkin' Donuts because as people walk to and from the Dunkin' Donuts, they're much more likely to notice the other businesses in that area. So that's just kind of a general proposition.
We don't think we are in a situation where we're controlling how they develop their property after they attain it, since we've already approved the parking spaces in front. And also, I'm sure the population center for that Dunkin' Donuts was maybe larger than Indiana Borough.
I mean, you're right that they might, and what if they don't?
Vote on this because I'm hoping that Sarah's exactly right, that this is the beginning of a conversation, not the end of a conversation. I frankly think that Indiana is worth it. I think they want to come here because a lot of people want to come here. I think that's going to happen to Indiana anyway. For the nature of demographics these days, as folks are moving out of cities and are looking for towns like ours, we should be aggressively going after those folks. I think we should be paying about $2,000 a piece to come here. And so I think developers want to be here. And so I am pretty confident that my no vote is not a no to development. It is a yes to development. It is a yes to let's have a conversation that makes some sense. Let's not try to fit square pegs and round holes because we're desperate for development, because that is just not the case. I don't feel like that's where we're there.
I mean, if we're talking about the perks of possibly having the Dunkin' Donuts in general, a long-term ramification could be what happens to the corner business, Buggies. Having a new facility there might make that corner a lot more attractive. And that place is a terrible, scary place for anyone who wants to buy it due to the decontamination that's required. So anything can be done to make it a little shinier and smell a little nicer isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's all.
You're totally right. And I hope that there can be a conversation that leads out of here that does include that property as well. That makes a lot of sense. It doesn't try to doesn't try to like squeeze this thing in there.
Donuts, unless it's too late to maybe reconform their design just a little bit, because there is a lot of public suggestions in both directions. Public safety should be our number one. And if the public is suddenly, having some issues, we need to present that the Dunkin' Donuts and give them the option to fix it if it's not too late. I don't know if it's too late because I'm a little late on this.
It should be noted that this is it. These are the votes that will, if these votes are approved, then the design is on paper is going forward.
We only touch it in a couple of places. And so this is our final sort of touch point. And the developers are sitting in the room and they've heard the conversation. So they may take it back and make some changes, but as a body that has the opportunity to make decisions and affect our community, this is our last opportunity to directly do that.
This is where I guess my lack of experience comes into play. I am absolutely in favor of this. And yet at the same point, I do share concerns about the sidewalk, the pedestrians, people who are jacked up on coffee, getting in and out irresponsibly, because they do, but we do.
Go here, which is no, and hopefully they'll come back and have a conversation like that, because that hasn't really happened. We've asked them to say, hey, can we do something a little different? And every point it's been no. So
No would be my personal.
What you're implying is they've expressed a no vote might mean they go elsewhere.
yeah.
So we might hope they want to talk more about it. They also might.
I sure hope so. I don't know where they're gonna go everywhere else in Indiana. Maybe they might, maybe they might. I have a high level of confidence somebody else is coming in. Not everybody shares that confidence.
And to your point, Luke, I would encourage folks to vote, to think about this as, I think most of us want to see development. We want to see the taxes. We want to see the jobs. Like there's a lot of good that comes with this. And I think, so what we're discussing at this point or thinking about is, weighing those goods versus the potential negatives that, in particular, Gerald and Don and I, this is our ward. And we've heard from a lot of our neighbors about, the pros and the cons, right? The excitement about that we heard in the letter about this coming in and the chance to get good coffee, but also the concerns about pedestrians in particular on South Fifth with this, for this, at least the time being, the schools on both ends of this and children going back and forth. And so that's why I wanted to divide this. And, and personally, I'm okay with the spaces, on the changes to the spaces and the driveways on Philadelphia. But I'm less comfortable with the ones on Fifth, because again, this is sort of the balancing for me of, balancing the pros and cons of this in terms of safety and livability and walkability versus the economics and having, I like Dunkin' Donuts, which we do on Saturday mornings. So if I don't have to drive to Dunkin' Donuts, this would be awesome. Right. So, that's kind of, I think that's my thought process at least.
And in addition, I was wondering too, because coming in and out from the Philadelphia Street side, on the Gompers side, isn't there another exit over there? So couldn't they still have a drive-through actually without?
All the way around the building again?
The Philadelphia entrance is also going to effectively be a one-way because there's going to be right turn only.
Without the removal of the Fifth Street parking, you will not be able to enter Dunkin' Donuts traveling west.
Yeah.
That's a huge issue. That's half of the town. Right. Without either doing something unsafe, like making a U-turn on Philly, making an illegal turn, asking them to go around the block.
It may just be that design doesn't fit there.
It's still closer than driving out to Oakland, right? I mean, for those who wanted to drive through coffee, it's still wicked more convenient to go around the block and come into it legally. Right. I mean, that would be a moving violation, and our police force is really good.
And if we don't approve it as what would be functional for, like, most people want to be able to turn left and then turn left out, we're causing more safety issues.
I don't buy the safety issue on that one, honestly. And I have full faith in the developers. I mean, they're clever, intelligent people that they can make money for them, and we can keep it safe for our constituents. And so I think this is, to me, this whole discussion, the whole community is about compromise, and the borough has compromised pretty significantly at this point. I'm going to compromise some more, just personally, to get this in here. But I think the compromise has to go both ways. And as G pointed out, in the few sort of conversations folks have had, it hasn't gone both ways yet.
One more point that is not a repeat point, I promise, is that these changes are permanent. So when we look from a long-term point of view, right, whether or not Dunkin' Donuts is there in the long term is really up in the air. But these changes will be permanent. And so maybe we have a great partner now, but whoever is in there next, whether or not they're going to be a partner, who knows? As you vote on this, you want to think about it. It's not just about this particular, the personality is in the room right now. This is essentially a forever change, right? We're forever. It's essentially like an oil slick with a little sugar on top that we're putting there, rather than a variety of other things that could be there.
And to that point, the idea behind the comprehensive plan is to guide us such that we're not in the business of the moment, but have these initiatives and directives such that we don't run into that issue.
Any more discussion of?
Since we're talking about public safety, I guess this is a good point to throw in another observation that I've made from living in the borough that I think is relevant to this. We've talked a little bit about traffic studies, and I think we've all seen the Dunkin' Donuts out on Oakland. And I think we're all expecting the real possibility that there will be cars sitting on Philadelphia and sitting on Fifth, given the size of this drive-through. And one thing that normal traffic studies don't take into account, as far as I can tell, is the fact that a lot of drivers in Indiana Borough have a habit of running a red light. I walk around the borough quite a bit, and I would say that between 10% and 25% of the times that I'm out in the borough, I see somebody running a red light. And by running a red light, I don't mean getting into the intersection when the light is yellow and it turns red, just as your tailpipe is whisking through the last of the intersection. I mean, the light's red when the vehicle comes into the intersection and it stays red, and that's it. About 3 weeks ago, I walked from my house down to the Indiana First Bank and back. And in that time, I saw sort of a scofflaw hat trick. That is one sedan running the red light at 6th and Water, one SUV running the red light at 6th and Philadelphia. No, it was 7th and Philadelphia that time. It's usually 6th and Philadelphia. And one pickup truck running the red light at Philadelphia and 9th. And I'm just not comfortable at all. I haven't studied 5th and Philadelphia that much. But given what I have seen over the last 20 years of living in the borough, on either Philadelphia or 5th, and hoping that they're not going to get rear-ended by somebody who is desperate to get through that intersection, because we've got a lot of them.
Chief, is it possible to make it so that cars are not allowed to wait in line on Philadelphia Street?
I think that would be extremely difficult.
That's what I was afraid.
And we have done, we did do an assessment of that area from the police department. I reported it to Public Safety Committee last month. And the assessment was that for us to do a traffic impact study, we would have to have the building in place in order to assess traffic. You have a 20-officer police department, we'd be more than capable to handle that study. The current assessment of roads, I didn't bring forward to public safety any specific traffic-related concern to their attention, other than pointing out that Gompers Avenue is just a narrower roadway than most in the borough. But again, it's one way until it gets to the 400 block. So as far as having vehicles or on the side of the road,
I have an email from the planner, Josh, and Brenda went, because we were both CC'd on it, and I didn't bring my phone. But he was forward the plans and for as far as the planning thing, and he did mention having signs put up Philly Street about not blocking the intersections and not blocking the driveway and drive-through. So he did say about posting signs.
I'm sorry, I missed what you said.
Lineup.
He said an idea could be to prevent a line, people blocking that we put signs. So, but he didn't see a problem in the originally, and again, I don't have the email to read verbatim, but he didn't see a problem with any of the issues. He just said there could, we could put signs as a preventive.
But I was just gonna say, I think we've all seen Oakland when it's starting to come out on, and I don't know what that name of that street is, but
Rose.
Rose, okay, I was gonna guess that, and I think that even if they had a sign, you would have those cars coming out there waiting in line. And I think it's even more dangerous right here on Philadelphia Street. It's something that I think this conversation helped me, because I didn't give it enough credence thinking about that line of cars at 7 a.m. or whatever.
I have a couple questions that Gerald and Ben might be able to really answer. Both of the schools are on the other side of the street, right? The middle school
There's
and
Horace
Horace
Mann
Mann.
and.
Yeah, they're both on the east side of Fifth Street, correct?
Oh.
Right.
It's not on this side of the street. Yeah.
My question is, the normal flow, there's traffic guards, right? Now, I don't know this, I do not have walking age kids. What level of guidance do kids normally follow about when to cross the street and where? So anyone on that side of the street will have to cross the street at some point. Is there a normal section where the crossing guard is that kids naturally funnel to?
Crosswalks. I think kids are pretty good at the intersection of crossing the crosswalks. I think I don't know, generally in the borough, kids are pretty good about crossing at the crosswalk.
That's what I meant. I more meant was some crosswalks are crosswalks and still have crossing guards. And so I assume that would be a natural point that kids had funneled to, hence the need for a crossing guard.
A driveway and to get to the corner currently.
To do. On their way back, it can be sort of either side. A lot of kids will come back right away. A lot of kids come back at different times. It's the idea that there's only a time when kids are in the morning. It's relatively concentrated, but my kids. So I have kids whose friends live on the other side, so they cross the street to go there, and then they come back, and so they end up on that side.
Sure. But realistically, the main point would be visibility, higher concentration of traffic, more specific concentration of kids.
Concentration of kids in the afternoon.
But there's less concentration of cars.
And it drags out more in the afternoon especially for junior high kids who are school activities and so forth, and then come, but you'll get clumps of them.
Better visibility and less of an influx of dramatic. Yeah.
Perhaps Chief has some information.
I do have a little insight to that question, if I can get to the point. We did the assessment with the school crossing guard also at Fifth and Philadelphia Street. There are less than 7 students that cross Fifth and Philadelphia Street. All of them use the east side of the roadway as opposed to the west. And the crossing guard does go out into the intersection of Fifth Street and helps them in any direction that they need to cross that intersection. So we learned that there were 0 kids that generally walk on the west sidewalk. There is 1 person with a mother this year that uses that west sidewalk, but the crossing guard felt confident that if they could ask them to cross the street, that it would be of minimal impact. So
What are the times of crossing guards there?
crossing guards are there for the 25 minutes before school starts and the 25 minutes after school starts until the last bus drops off at their intersection. And that's generally speaking, yes.
I would expect there's a lot of kids that pass outside that 15-minute period.
I'm sure we're talking about just 1 year. Next year, it might not be 0 and 7. The year after that, it might not be 0 and 7. One instance numbers don't really give us much information.
Closes, there'll be less.
Term, right? This is not a now decision. This is a long-term, this is a forever decision.
And they're talking about closing the other school. So all we're talking about would be the middle school in that case, and the high school, I guess, too. Yeah, the high school as well.
All the high school kids walk that way. All the junior high kids walk that way. Any kid is going to walk that way to go to school.
But only 7 do.
This year, right now.
Only 7 do or did during your study.
This is elementary school kids. And
elementary
that's
school
from the
kids.
school.
Well, that's
crossing
only,
guard.
so that's not junior high kids.
There
They're
are
high school kids.
the eye test, there are more junior high kids that are crossing, but they're not crossing with the guard, and they're crossing at the crosswalks, should be again with the traffic signals, so.
Working with each other and looking at their phones and what they're.
New York or at the beach at 4th of July, people really do need to pay attention and get a little more responsible with common sense and walking with traffic, I would assume.
Had chief about this since I got on council. State law says if you're in a crosswalk, you are safe. But in the borough, you are not. And so this is, I'm not trying, it's a whole other conversation. I don't want to, but I would love for you to do that.
Council meetings when we do that.
Buses wouldn't try to hit me in the crosswalk. I would take it as a win.
Just because it's against state law doesn't mean people aren't going to do it.
But to our decriminalization of marijuana conversation, we'll come back to that idea in a couple of weeks.
People, you're not supposed to run red lights, right?
Can I hear what?
Philadelphia.
Let's just do the Philadelphia. Honestly, right now. Like,
Oh, wow, those little microwave circles.
Um,
In fairness, yes or no, and that's up to you guys.
Developers representatives are here. Would you like to address this at this point, or?
Yes. Please don't run away.
is a small company. If you're looking at 2/3 of our real estate group here tonight, we are a coffee shop. We chose to brand with a known coffee commodity and spread the brand. We started out in recession with one store, and we've grown responsibly, and we're over 60 stores now. But we're just a mom and pop that went ahead and invested our money in the Dunkin' brand. So a lot of the questions tonight have been about the development. I mean, tonight, the issue is very specific as relates to the parking meters. Can you remove the 4 parking meters? What are the standards legally? When we were here originally, the concern was about the cost. And the meters, as the evidence was presented, amounted to about 50 cents per day. So the cost and the benefits of the revenue, it's obviously not a factor. Can the spaces be removed? Yes. 10 spaces are being added to the parking lot. We're responsible for the removal. We're responsible for maintenance. We're responsible for making sure it's done properly, and we're responsible for working with the borough. So in terms of standards, as it relates to moving these 4 parking spaces, whether you like Dunkin', whether you want a small coffee shop, a large coffee shop, the issue as it relates to the parking meters is exactly what's the legal standard, what's been asked by us as the standard, and we've gone ahead and we've met everything that has been presented to us. You know, everybody has a preference. We go to meetings, some people want a Dunkin', some don't. You have a code, and our design has been carefully done over months and months and redesigns, and our plan complies with the code. That's what the code's for. We don't require any variances because we've carefully designed the site. We're familiar with this design. We're comfortable with it. It meets the requirements. We've added the additional parking. So as it relates to traffic, we've done traffic studies. The borough, excuse me, and PennDOT have agreed upon the scope of our study. It's been presented, it's under review, and for land development approval, that study has to be approved by PennDOT. So we're not here to talk about traffic. That's been part of the development process. So this is not a development review meeting. It's strictly to focus on the issues at hand. What are the legal standards? And the development portion is being handled by the code. It's being handled by us. It's being, once again, very carefully designed based on the code and making it the best store for this location. And I've said this to other members. We don't need to be here. We want to be here. We're not being forced. We really like the area. We think it would be a great addition. I mean, we're excited. We're not here to impose our will on anyone. We just would like to build a site. We'll build it to code. We'll build it to provisions. We'll get through all the land development process. And we're here to ask, based on the standards and what we provide in terms of evidence, to remove the meters. To separate the motion is just a way to add one more vote. It doesn't matter. Same apply to both. So you can't separate them out. There's no fundamental rational basis to do so.
Counsel on that.
Point taken. I'm allowed to address council. So in terms of the parking meter spaces, that's essentially what I have to add.
Question. Can I ask one last question? If these are all passed and they're approved, and I don't know if it's appropriate to ask him specifically or not, are they like, is that it? Breaking ground whenever they're ready. Is that correct?
We approve the conditional parking spaces on a list of requirements that included studies, that included following code, working with our code department. So it's a last step for council, for this, us, but our staff will continue to work with them to ensure that, yes.
meet whatever requirements they're told. Okay, I don't have a doubt in that.
That's all.
If these all pass, they're building, right?
Unless there's another issue that comes to us, and then, yeah. I would say-
Right now, we are voting on the removal of 2 parking spaces on the district. All in favor?
That'd be a roll call vote, because it's probably gonna need to be anyway. Yep.
Can you reiterate that question?
You started the other end this time.
Voting on.
The removal of parking spaces.
Remove parking spots.
On Philadelphia Street.
Technically, you should go the next one down during every.
Can we- These 2 spots.
No.
Yes.
No,
Smith. No. Yes. Lancaster. Herring.
Yes.
Visor.
Oh, is there music? Can I phone a friend? Okay. No.
Broad.
No.
6 yes.
No, it's 5 now.
I know, oh, one abstained, I'm sorry.
Is not a no vote.
An abstention by Robert's rules is always a no vote.
An abstention under the Pennsylvania code.
That's different. You know the code.
My
That's how we got you
understanding
here.
is that it's a vote neither way. Because he can't vote yes or no,
Because he legally can't.
because
vote.
legally he has what he perceives as a conflict of interest.
So that changes to 11.
11.
It's 11 and it's 6 yes, 5 no.
That's why we have a solicitor.
No.
The other part of the original motion, the 2 meters on Fifth Street. Of those that goes beyond what we just had.
I want to reiterate my earlier point that I think not approving the driveway on Fifth Street is not a safe move. I understand there's some sidewalk going to be missing and there's some parking, but I don't actually think that if you're really concerned about safety of pedestrians, that not allowing a left turn is the right move, because you're going to have people turning illegally left. It's a difference between design and use, and people are going to turn left on a right turn only if you don't give them the option, because it's obvious that they should be able to turn left to get in, and you're stopping half of the town.
Off of Philadelphia Street, so crossing traffic.
Getting into the turn lane on Fifth, like you're in the turn lane on Fifth, on Philly to turn left onto Fifth and go in. You're not allowing anyone traveling west from getting into the.
I want to clarify is what illegal left turn? Are you talking about coming left out or coming left in?
And they say they develop it with just everything but that. I don't think that's a safe move. If you're concerned about safety, I'm just arguing that
Which left turn?
the left turn, when you're on Philadelphia Street and you turn left onto Fifth Street to get into Duncan.
Make the right.
Right? If you're
West
traveling,
on Philadelphia Street.
you want to get to the other side of town, but you want to stop at Duncan, you are asking people to make what probably most likely will happen. They'll make an illegal turn.
The left turn off of Philadelphia Street, across traffic into it.
If we block this,
Don't understand.
I don't believe that's what she's saying. Yes.
The Fifth Street is legal.
No, what she's saying.
angle, everyone's going to walk across the grass to get there.
Scenario you're painting is, and that's all.
The town is going to go west.
Cross the eastbound lane of Philadelphia.
Want to get into Duncan, you can't, it's a right in, right out on Philly, right? So the only way to get in and get out and to go the other direction which is 50% of the traffic.
No, it's not the only way. It's the most expedient way.
And that you could go around the block. That's always, yes, you could always go around the block. You can go down Water Street and you can come down 2 blocks.
And so I go around a lot of blocks.
It's a lot easier to walk to too.
Experience issue, and you're gonna find people doing illegal things that make it more unsafe. And I understand your point, but
The false dichotomy. You said if we vote no, then this scenario is going to happen. I think if we vote no on these 2 sites, I think the developer is going to have to go back and reconsider because there's a lot of possibilities, right? I don't know what's going to happen if they vote no. I'm not the designer, and we aren't responsible for designing a drive-through for them. That's not our job here.
right now, the argument made for the Fifth Street is a safety issue. And I'm saying, I think there's another issue that is presenting itself if you vote on this in a safety issue. I think you're creating a new one.
And the scenario you created is very specific. Possibly what happened, maybe they'll just cut off Fifth Street and have the exact same design, but I think they're better. I think they're better designers than that. I think they're probably the smarter idea. And that's what we'd like to work with them on.
I mean, you can't change the traffic. You can't change how people function when they're in their car and they want to turn left.
Probably not helping the discussion. We should vote.
To create, you've taken away the path of least resistance. So they're going to create, people will create one, right? And we've talked a lot about people hitting people and the safety this and safety that. If everyone does what they're supposed to do, there's no problem, right? Anything we're talking about is when somebody is doing something they shouldn't have, right? So every scenario is a little bit make-believe, honestly. We do not know kids will get hit. We do not know people will make left turns, right? All of this is summarization based on people are failable, right? So then people are going to fail. That's the only thing here that's known for sure, right? Someone is going to do something they shouldn't do. And we're trying to weigh the pros and cons of what those somethings are.
It's a safety issue for me, and it's not. I don't think it's on this council to design a safe Dunkin' Donuts for them. I think it's on the designers to bring a safe design to us.
I don't think there's such thing as a totally safe design, period.
We can do better than what's here, and that's what I would love to have a conversation on. That's why I'm going to vote no.
More discussion on the removal of 2 parking meters on South Fifth Street.
Call for the vote.
They loud enough so they can hear.
Said I'd like to call for the vote.
Colazo.
Broad.
No, she told me to skip Broad.
Should be broad.
I'm listening to them. Broad.
On the other one, I'm going to vote no on this one too.
Colazo. Sure.
No.
Abstain.
Lancaster. Smith.
Yes.
One abstain.
7-4.
Too many spreadsheets going on over here.
Me too.
4, and then it's 4-7, 4-6 and 1.
1 abstain.
All right, back to administration. You have another motion for us.
Motion on the local share account resolution. The suggested motion is to approve a resolution authorizing the borough staff to apply for funding through the statewide local share account program.
At the last minute, and I really didn't have a chance to, we got a letter from Jim Struzzi about a grant opportunity, and the deadline, no, unfortunately, is March 15th. So this is part of the process to pass the resolution. And it's hopefully some free money that we can get and put it towards a project.
This resolution again does not need a second. And so we can do a voice vote. Resolution. In favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Talk about it. Just kidding.
All right, community development.
You have a report from our February 14th meeting in your packet. Just a couple of highlights. Under Planning Commission, there's an outline for sort of next steps for the Historic Architecture Review Board. We're hoping to do the survey of historic architecture in sort of the borough core, which is they're defining as between Chestnut and Washington and 4th and 12th this summer, and then move forward with forming the HARB into the fall and into early of 2023. Also, under new business, we had an extended conversation about fraternities outside of sort of our designated Greek area, in particular in this case, in the South 6th Street, in the 100 block of South 6th Street. It was kind of a long and informative conversation, but the upshot was that staff is sort of working it from their end and was going to reach out to IEP's Greek Life to try to get some support from the other side, because at least one of the fraternities identifies that location as their headquarters. So they're clearly self-identifying as a fraternity outside of our zone. The other one, it's a little bit harder to know. It's not quite as clear in that case, but they've been causing some difficulties for the neighbors. And then we had a conversation about American Rescue Plan funding. And that was our meeting, adjourned at 9 o'clock.
Questions for community development? Public safety.
Okay, I'll start with our motion. Bruno's Restaurant, Snaps, Kachina Mia, and Auto Sports are requesting the closure of Philadelphia Street from 9th Street to 13th Street and 11th Street from Water to Church on Sunday, August 14th, 2022, from 12 noon to 7 p.m. for the Italian Festival event. A waiver of the open container ordinance, Borough Code Chapter 184, has been requested. This is not yet considered a recurring event, so council approval is requested. This is going to be the third year for the event. Move to approve the suggested motion that went through my committee, Public Safety Committee, was approved by our committee. Move to approve the Italian Festival event and associated open container waiver request on Sunday, August 14th, 2022, from 12 p.m. to 7 p.m. on Philadelphia Street between 9th and 13th, and on 11th Street between Water and Church.
To go all the way to Water, and all the way to Church, isn't that farther than they went last time? Didn't they stop at the alleys? I can't remember the name of the alleys, but didn't they?
Gompers and. Yep.
So I guess what I'm asking you was, is it an oversight they went all the way, or did they specifically mean to request all the way?
They requested more room. And they were going to take into serious consideration any railroad track issues. That is definitely something that we brought to their attention.
And just for a point for the newcomers on council, we had keep having council voting on these type of events. To be a recurring event, it has to happen 3 consecutive years. Well, with COVID, that was a bump, but this would be the 3rd consecutive time. So if we approve this, then if they request to do this again next year, it doesn't have to come through council. Will be considered a regular occurring event.
Any questions? All in favor of approving the Italian Festival in August, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. It's a go, it's approved.
We did meet on February 17th, the Public Safety Committee, and we had a nice ceremony for retirement of Detective John Scherf that was well attended. I do want to point out our police chief is one of the few police chiefs selected to attend the FBI National Command Course in May from the 2nd to 6th down in Fredericksburg, Virginia. I think that's a very good thing for our police department. and the fact that it talks about our chief and what he does. Just a quick update on body worn cameras. The police department's currently working out any problems they're encountering with the body cameras. It's anticipated sometime this month that the cameras will be put into use. And Lieutenant Solvinsky has developed a training course with a PowerPoint that each officer must take and must pass. Another thing that we did in our meeting is we had Hank Kukula come in. He's the head of parking. It was brought to my attention, and I brought it to Hank's attention, that there were contractors interested in a yearly pass. And that would be a pass to park in areas of the borough where permit parking is required Monday through Friday during business hours. And that we approved that, and he's going to be issuing not only now a 2-day permit for a contractor, a 10-day permit, but a yearly permit for a contractor who want to do it to save them coming in. It'll cost the contractor $100 for the permit, so they can park without getting ticketed in the areas where permit parking is required during business hours. And that's all I have to report.
Questions for public safety? Moving on then, Public Works.
All right.
Handing it over to.
Chair. All right, we had to talk about requiring public utilities, the contractors to require permits from the borough prior to doing work. This we haven't had in place in the past, but it would allow us to be informed about where they're doing work, timelines, and it just gives us a little more accountability for who's doing work, who to contact, because usually it's subcontractors, so we will know who to contact if there's an issue. A lot of times they come in, fill, residents understand this, they fill, they backfill, and then it sinks, and then we have big ruts in our roads. So knowing who's doing the work is really important to us, and I think that's going to be pushed through Public Works soon. We have a number of expensive things that we need to fix at the wastewater treatment plant. We have some flights that need to be replaced. They were installed in 1982. So for big ticket items. Do we have a motion on that? Let me see. I know we brought that to council here. It's another part of my packet.
Brander.
Yeah, do we need a motion for that, like $140,000?
It went through CoStar and it's, I think we just need to inform you if it's over $10,000.
No motion is necessary. You can see the details there. I'm not going to go into them. But Roland and John from wastewater already visited the location and saw some of this equipment in use. Have issues with the heating in the library building / the community center building. It's not, that's a continuing problem, and there's some temporary solutions, but we're still looking for a more permanent fix. We entered into agreement with a company that inspects our fire protection equipment. We had not had our equipment inspected in a number of years. It's an oversight. I think between the moving and a large oversight, thankfully no fires. So we're now being inspected regularly, as we should have been. What else? Okay, we have a streetlight relocation. This is a motion.
Do that. It's unrelated to your motion. It was about the first thing you said about them having to apply for permits to do work.
Yeah.
Okay, so my specific question is, they do an awful job most of the time. So if a resident were to complain about them, is it going to get tagged in their file? Because I've had whole streets ripped up. I mean, it helps me a little bit. I get called. Like, so I'm gonna, if company X comes in as a sub for the water company and does a god awful job. Right? Is that noted somewhere if people start complaining since we know who they are now?
We'll know who they are. A lot of times it's like digging after the fact to find out who did it, to come and fix it.
Yeah, so then fast forward 6 months, water company needs another water line put in, company X comes back in, but they just did a terrible job the first time, right? And then rinse and repeat over 6 years, right? Some of these companies just come in, tear up, leave, and then all the residents are calling me to fix it. So.
Protected. This is like the public utilities are very protected about like what we can really require them to do. But this is honestly like a low level. We just want to know who's doing it, when, and who to contact.
A terrible job on leave and nothing happens to them.
We've asked them to come back. We politely.
Who to ask, right? That's what I'm getting at.
Just like cut the top off of your tree. Not much we can do about it.
They don't have a contract with the borough. They have a contract with the utility.
But if we,
Right, don't they? That means they park on borough property.
they sure do, and the PUC gives them a very wide latitude to do quite a lot of that without us being able to do anything. I think this permit, I wasn't at the meeting, but I think the permit idea is a good idea. And I think it could probably help the track, you know, if we're able to say yes to this stuff. We may not be able to say no, but at least we know. But it's a good question.
But if there's a hole in the road, we know who to contact.
House, they still haven't paid for the center over. And will they get a certain amount of length of time to do that?
To get along, yeah, yeah.
But it might be good to start with this.
It's often a timing thing. You know, are they gonna pay now? Are they gonna pay later? And a lot of times there may be 4 or 5 different jobs they try to put together.
Yeah.
That's what I've been told.
Your part. I'm not bitter or anything about the utility companies. Yes, I have a motion.
Back to the Duncan, I'll finish the report. That way it's not gonna be chopped up because I have a feeling this conversation is gonna go on. All right, we're still doing COVID testing. And we discussed the rescue plan funding. We discussed stormwater, using it. However, the issue with that is that it's a drop in the bucket for the amount of work that we need to do for stormwater. So we could put a drop in that bucket and use all of our money, or we could move it around. So that was a discussion that we had in Public Works, because this building is in need of serious repair. And it's not as exciting, but when the roof is leaking and you can hear the wind going through the walls, and the reason this wall is blue is because there's so many leaks that we had to paint it.
Be a question for Nicole. When would be, I had an idea, the drop to put in the bucket, for example. When would be the appropriate time to talk about that?
Well, the first step was we went to all the committees, and then after the committees, Kyle and I and Steph meet weekly on it, and we take the data, and our next step is we're gonna put it back out to public to let them know what the plans is with the list of prioritized, like what we came up with. And then at a work session, we're gonna bring our ideas to a work session, and we'll start from there.
About the stormwater issue, one thing that was discussed, and it's been discussed a couple times, is finding solutions that will alleviate issues with homeowners that will not necessarily fix our bigger issue that we need to fix, but
That was gonna be one of my suggestions.
That's something that we are interested in doing to help. It would be individual homeowners, but there's certain areas that are peak points, and you know, well, where that area is. Yeah. All right, that's basically it. And we had new business. We approved a right-of-way request for Naps and Josephine's. They're going to be building a second-story deck in front of a couple properties there, so it's actually pretty nice. It looked good. All right. Street light removal, 6 feet towards. Motion. Back to the beginning. Approval for committee, so I'm gonna need a second. I move to approve the relocation of a streetlight located at 518 Philadelphia Street.
I'll second.
We have these charts here that show where we.
Bob Cruzan, our arborist, who said there would be no damage to the tree, he approved it. And the other concern that was brought up at the meeting that we discussed was the visibility issue with the business next to it that has signage in the front of her building. That is why I contacted her to ensure that she understood what was happening. And if she had any concerns about that, she had absolutely no concerns, and I asked her to write a letter, and she did, and we've read that.
I appreciate the concern about the current business owner not minding. Again, we need to be thinking about the long term, particularly on public works. That streetscape was designed for a particular, in a particular way. If we're going to move it around, again, we got to think about it for the long term. The current business owner may not mind. The next business owner is going to want to cut that tree down if they also have the lamp in front of them.
The lamp is technically on the property in front of Dunkin' Donuts. It is not actually in front of the next door property. And the street light is being moved in line with the other street lights. Right now, it's currently outside of the line. All the other street lights are in the brick path, and this one was built outside. So this one will be moving it inside. Those are all the details.
We're bringing it more into line.
Line is currently out of line.
Is it out of line?
Looks as if there's an enormous electrical junction under the sidewalk there. At least there's a plate that seems to state that. And the light pole obviously wasn't put there so that it wouldn't be on top of a nest of wires.
There you go.
This motion. By saying aye?
Aye.
Aye. No. There's only one vote though.
Carries. More questions for Public Works?
Public Works. Did I just see in the minutes that you made a motion to approve a fee increase for the sewers to 16? Is that moving to council for a vote, or is that already done?
That was in the fee.
That was-
The fee schedule.
Yeah. We have one of the lowest rates in the state. Yeah. So, yeah, it's just we're trying to cover costs. We have a lot of big repairs to do.
Have anything from Shade Tree?
No, I didn't.
So.
Shade Tree.
We didn't.
Nothing from Shade Tree. I'm insulted. Come on. Man.
I can't remember. I didn't bring my notes with me.
Talked about. The specifics, it was, oh, sorry, thank you. It wasn't a terribly from me, and I think that I don't know what you call it, the shade tree ordinance. I don't know the exact right process. I think it needs to be looked at and reviewed. Some of it, I think, needs to be tweaked. And again, I don't think anyone, with the round of letters that went out, I don't think anyone did anything wrong. I think everybody did what they were supposed to do. I think what they're supposed to do should be tweaked. Some little bit of, even if it's down to simply some of the language in the letter sent, things like that. Things like of that nature is what drove most of why I came to the Shade Tree to want to talk to them about. And so I don't know the formal process to ask to, hey, let's review an ordinance, but I guess that's what I'm asking. Somebody who knows better, tell me how to do this.
Ideally, the Shade Tree ordinance ought to come to us from the Shade Tree Commission. But it should go to a committee. And depending on what the nature of the ordinance.
It was which committee? I think was a little bit of the.
Yeah.
Would be Public Works or.
And I told you you were gonna get it.
Yeah.
Anyways, don't double it, right? You need to double your paycheck there, man.
Lou's gonna come talk with us.
We'll continue, we'll bring it up shade tree again. And Bob Chrisan knows, because I talked to him yesterday about it, so he is seeing some issues.
Yeah, does it make sense for Public Works to, I mean, I understand community development has its hands full in a real way with a lot of different ordinances. And Public Works is thinking about this parks position, does it make sense? to
I'm just
combine
going to say that, yeah.
Does that?
Yeah, let's take, I agree, let's, maybe.
Dawn had made a comment, and again, I apologize, I don't know what all this stuff is. Something about a subcommittee. Okay, so what happens after it goes to committee is my question.
Makes a recommendation to full council.
Okay, so not a subcommittee? I don't know what a subcommittee is, forgive me. So no, okay, just double checking. Poor shade tree.
Thanks for your help. Because when you said that, it came back to me.
The committee, in order to come up with the language that then comes to council for us to vote on.
Another thing I have to report is our auditors started today. They're in-house. They'll be here about 2 weeks. Auditing for 2021 books. We did advertise, we put out advertising for a custodian for our library, our community center is, we're looking for a part-time custodian. And then also we're in the process, the parks position. So we're in the process of advertising for those. Currently, everything's posted in-house. And then the only other thing is the LSA grant program that you guys approved. Again, that's for, we're looking to get some grant money for a project. 2 umbrellas for the IRMC park is going to be delivered tomorrow, and that was due to that grant from last year that we got. And they're being delivered tomorrow, so we'll have Public Works put those up. And then I do want to touch base on the ARP again. Again, we'll be bringing that to a work session within the next, probably not next month or the month after. So we still have 2024 to spend the money. So we still have some time. And right now, I have a meeting with our engineers next week. You know, costs right now are so high in different things. So we really have to consider like maybe what we want to do with this funding for now.
So they think it's gonna come down?
I know. So everything, all of our projects had to be kind of increased a lot, and our, even our stormwater plan needed updated, and so, but we, again, that will all come again to Public Works. There's gonna be a lot coming into Public Works. So, all right, that's all I have.
It was brought to my attention by constituent, my wife, about what you were offering to pay a part-time custodian, $11.96 an hour. Are we?
That's part of the union. There, it's a union.
I want
It's
to know,
under the
because it just
contract.
seems kind of low.
Yeah, that's part of, it's union contract.
I didn't have a chance to double check this. I apologize, but in your council package should be police activity reports for both January and February. There's nothing in my review of those from past weeks that would jump out that I think that council would need to know about, but certainly I'm available and the Public Safety Committee is available for any discussion on that topic if anyone would like to have. I'd like to bring to the attention that the Borough Police Department is partnering with Indiana County Children and Youth Services Citizens Advisory Board and also the our district attorney's office for a human trafficking presentation, dangers, how to protect our community from. This is a public presentation open to all members of Indiana Borough, White Township, or surrounding communities. That's going to take place on March 14th, which is this Monday from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Summit Church, 2707 West Pike Road in Indiana, PA. And again, that's going to be a community-based presentation on the dangers of trafficking. And there are several entities listed on the flyer: Shared Hope International, Children's Rescue Initiative, Living in Liberty, and the Acervo Project, who are going to be present for that. It is not an Indiana Borough Police conversation, although I certainly will be there representing both Indiana Borough and the CYS Citizens Advisory Board. Yes.
Is that something you would suggest bringing teenage families to?
The
Or is that
audience-
only for adults?
The audience is appropriate for teen through adults, but the subject matter will be mature.
Okay.
So certainly parental discretion is advised, but a good topic. Forward St. Patrick's Day is upon us quickly. It will be here before our next opportunity to meet publicly. So I just want to thank, first of all, our community for really just being patient, being safety-minded. And I would just ask that that continue, that people be vigilant on St. Patrick's Day for increased pedestrian traffic, perhaps increased alcohol consumption. And just know that the police department will be here for any needs that would occur. In conjunction with that, there are generally increased activity weekends that occur in Indiana Borough that surround St. Patrick's Day at our off-campus housing locations. And what I'd like council to know is that your police department, along with our partners, are preparing for increased activity. You're likely, or you're certain to see an increase in at least a visible presence on the weekend of March 25th through the 27th of this year. As I've done in past years, I wrote a letter to Indiana IUP student residents that I'm in the process from the police department of disseminating in part. And again, because I don't know that we'll have an opportunity to meet before then, just asking our community to be good neighbors with each other, reminding our populations who are going to gather that visitors to Indiana may not feel the same sense of community pride and responsibility as our residents do, that not everyone met will have the best interests at heart of the person that they're engaging with, that even the best intentions of many can be subverted by the actions of a few, that alcohol consumption impairs judgment, that gathering on rooftops is prohibited and dangerous, and that our next door neighbors cannot avoid being impacted by loud indoor or large outdoor gatherings during celebratory weekends. I also highlighted that the safety and well-being of everyone is our priority, and that our responsibility to everyone is that we remain safe and successful in handling any and every situation presented, and that your police department is here for you, never against. And so I just want to make sure that council has that message as well. It's going out through different channels and mediums. We are again coordinating our efforts with our partner agencies. More publicly will be announced after an all stakeholders IAC meeting, which is scheduled for March 21st. So I don't feel that it's appropriate for me to speak on behalf of any stakeholder or partner, knowing that that presentation is coming, other than to say that we're coordinating as always, and we'll continue to do so. This meeting has certainly, I want to reiterate that public safety meets. Our next meeting is March 17th. There's opportunity at those meetings. I'll make opportunity at those meetings to have any broader discussion on any topic that a member of the community or the member of council would like to have. Certainly, my office is always open. I know that the mayor's office door is always open. Public safety is always available, not only for matters that are brought, but matters that are brought by the police department, but also our community members. So I just want to remind council that always willing to discuss broader matters that perhaps I can't discuss or speak to in public setting. In this domain, certainly would be willing to in public safety. And I just continue to appreciate the opportunity to. So thank you.
Chief, are there any questions? Chief Shaw?
Continue to work very closely with Nicole and Stephanie on issues. The issue regarding the fraternities, I met with Stephanie and we're working diligently with the code department on addressing those issues. Nicole, we met with, and we're trying to make sure that we have a good open policy so that we avoid future issues like we had in the past. Try to deal with the issues as they come up and as they're presented. So to foster a good working relationship with the union and their representatives. working with Chief Shaw on a few issues. Um, You know, we're moving matters forward. There's some movement on the properties down in Washington Street, Senate Fair, in the Washington Street area that have been brought to council's attention. We have made significant progress with regard to that. Hopefully at our work meeting, I can give you a more thorough update on that. There's one little thing that I'm waiting for before we make that public, but otherwise, things are moving forward. And I'm available to council if you have any questions or issues.
Questions? And tonight for the first times from the future.
Up till 8:30.
CUP representative that you met earlier. Jen, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Thank you all for welcoming me tonight. I am accustomed to coming to these meetings. When I was executive director of downtown Indiana in 2001, 2002, I attended all of them, so I am quite familiar with the proceedings. It's good to be back. I'll share some quick updates with you that we have coming up. Both our men's and women's basketball teams have made it to the Atlantic Regionals. Our men's team will be hosting this weekend at home, which is great. That brings in 7 guest teams to the community. So there'll be a lot of traffic happening. And then our women play first game on Friday in Glenville, West Virginia. So they face Cal U and our men face Fayetteville State. So exciting stuff. We hope that you guys will come out and cheer them on. My office, the alumni office, is also planning activities in Glenville for those fans that are traveling so that we can cheer on our women too, as it is Women's History Month. So that's always great. Also, to follow up to that, spring break will be next week. Students will be off campus. We'll have a small population that will stick around. And then as Chief Shaw shared on Monday, the 21st, Dr. Driscoll, along with Commissioner Gorman, will head up the IACT All Stakeholders meeting down at the KCAC. So it's great to be here. I'm not a borough resident. I live right on the edge of the borough. Literally across the street is the borough from my house. So, but I did live in the borough at one time. Was born and raised here in Indiana. Went to IUP, graduated in '98 with my degree in journalism and public relations. Moved away and came back home. And I'm raising my family here now.
Questions for Jen?
What time was that IAC meeting on March 25th?
1 o'clock.
1 p.m.
You can't go.
We're getting most of the community.
At 5 p.m. on Saturday, and the women play at 2:30 p.m. And the women's game will be streamed live. If you go to our athletic site, you can pick up that information there. And they also have the tournament link up. So information is already out there on tickets and how you can get those and pricing and so forth.
Games on Saturday. So for your $20, you can watch 4 really good Division II college basketball teams, or 4 games, 8 teams. Pretty nice way to spend a day, actually.
The tournament will go on to Sunday for the semifinal play. And then winners of that will then play on Tuesday here in Indiana. Women will play Friday, Saturday, break on Sunday, and then their championship games are on Monday.
2 of the teams in this Atlantic region, IUP and West Liberty, are 2 of the top 3 schools in the country at this level. So there's going to be some good basketball and a lot of people coming into town.
And if you go, you can hear him shout.
Thank heavens for Dawn is all I can say. We need some more Dawns.
So
Okay.
Patrick's Day goes, do you anticipate more activity, less activity? You have no idea.
On actual St. Patrick's Day, I would say from university standpoint, our students are going to be away on spring break. And as Chief Charles Shaw said, it'll likely be that following weekend. I believe it's the 25th, around where it hits, where you would anticipate seeing their celebratory activity.
So with the numbers of attendance right now, you think it could be more or less, or we'll just wait and see?
Have no way of gauging.
Pounds for IU Patty's Day.
I think it's safe to say, isn't it, Chief, that it's not enough information available to us to know whether it's going to be bigger or smaller than past years, but my guess is it's probably going to be smaller than it was at its peak.
We're always going to be obtaining information up to the event. We'll certainly put out all relevant information. I can speak to the fact that social media and conversations regarding the weekend are lighter this year than we've seen in perhaps the past years where pre-COVID, but I'm not, certainly I can't draw any conclusion from that. And we'll prepare as we do, but certainly for your confidence level, we're preparing with our partners. We're preparing with best information from many sources. We're always closely partnered with the university and state and Public Works, Parking, Indiana Borough. Everyone is involved. And so you can have faith in our planning process that it will be certainly sound with best information.
It's true that the state police are planning to bring the horses. Yeah. You wonder what you're stepping in. All right.
I know we don't have any control over that.
Moving on. It's my turn, but it's going to be short. A very little report. All of us have been hearing from constituents on a couple of issues, and we've heard those reports. And I was going to read what I had at this point, but I already did it, so you get spared. Other than that, I'd like to thank our manager and staff for their ongoing work to pursue grants for our various projects and to hire needed personnel. I need to get new glasses. These are the people who keep the borough functioning, and we need to recognize them. Thank you all. And that's what I have, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, good evening. As I continue to go out visiting and playing ambassador to the community, I've had some interesting meetings this past month, but the best one was with Byron Stuffer, county planner, as he tells me that he received a grant for $2.5 million to buy the carriage house and the Essex house. So that's going to be quite a project going forward. And that's something we want to watch and see how it all develops. But that, I think that's big news.
What are the potential uses of that site then? So, and I guess who owns that then?
Well, the county will, who got the grant, will obviously put the money down. Plus, they're going to pay about $500,000 to demolish the buildings.
And that entity is the county? That's the county government?
ICDC, that's correct.
Development Corporation, which is a separate corporation, not an old. How do they relate? Commissioners, the county commissioners.
Well, that's.
I believe the members are appointed by the commissioners. I believe it's kind of like a authority type of.
Byron's a county employee, but he's also on the ICDC.
So he's paid by the county, but he now has, he's able to do something with this property in the borough.
Yes, he works with grants. He spends a lot of time with that. And this is a big deal. So we'll keep an eye on it to see.
Word for ICDC, it's not just Byron. And, you know, so Byron, I believe, is the county's representative on that board.
Just trying to figure out if somebody's interested in being involved in that conversation of how that property is redeveloped.
Jim Wiley, I believe, is the head of the ICDC.
But I'm just trying to see, is this a public entity that owns this, or is this a private entity? What sort of public, like, are these public dollars that are going into this that we should be able to we should be able to account for? So we should be able to follow this money and really find out who are the decision makers that are making these decisions. Like that process should be open, even though it's the ICDC. Is that right? So I guess, how's that process work then, I guess? I guess it's a question for the county, but yeah.
Jim Wiley has retired, and Joe Brischini is the new president of ICDC. But yeah, should be a real good project. We'll keep an eye on it. Very good. Okay, that's it.
Any questions for the mayor?
It does. With IUP getting smaller, it takes about 237 beds off the rental properties too. So it's it's just kind of heading in that direction.
Just to
That's right.
Yep. Where are all the people gonna go that are there now? So it is college rental? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, because he knows people and I actually just employ someone who was not a college student who lived there. So now, what level of legality they lived there was, I don't know, but crashing at a buddy's
It's just-
house, I don't know.
Yeah,
but-
no, it's just rented month by month through the apartment store.
To be demolished or changed.
It's a, you know, it is low income, low income housing there. And so if that is closing, then we should think about where all those folks are going to be able to afford to live.
I think it's mostly students. I really do.
Accurate. I know a lot of folks that live there and none of them are students.
Yeah, I mean, I've known people who've lived there that weren't students as well. Like I said, I don't know how much maybe was couch surfing going on, but I definitely have known people that were not students that lived there.
Mayor, along these lines, I mean, I think it's a great project. I think it's good news in terms of there's been a lot of our crime activity, like our big crimes have happened in that general vicinity. I think, and so I think there's some benefits to this. Though it is in the borough, it's a big project in the borough. I think it'd be nice, it'd be beyond nice, frankly, for the borough to be engaged in this process. And so as you have these conversations, please, ask Byron at all. Because this, like, I read it in the paper like everybody else did. And from a community development perspective, they don't have to let us know anything, but it would be nice to be involved and be able to involve council and through the council, our constituents, and sort of thinking about what this project looks like as it moves forward.
That's exactly why I go out and meet with all these different people, is to bring the borough involved with it. You're right. So all of a sudden you wake up and something happens, you say, well, we didn't even know about that. That's just not right.
Approved yet, they wouldn't necessarily be able to announce anything.
Talking, I post hoc found out that it had been talked about. Anyways, I think and not just for my own ego, I think this is just a matter of, keeping the borough involved in these big projects would be great. So.
Thanks.
We have listed under old business 3 items, 2 of which we've already discussed to some extent tonight. We haven't really talked much about the American Rescue Plan, but we did point out that our staff is working on all the proposals. There will be another public meeting before any decisions are made. We have until 2024 to get the money spent or committed, I guess. So.
Yeah, we'll bring it up. Again, we put it on the agendas for moving forward because it's a discussion that we have weekly though. So we'll get something set up for a work session in the next couple months.
I know that it's been made a comment that we have all this time to spend it. I feel the need to point out that the longer we wait to spend it, the less it's worth. Just throwing it out there.
We have in place with our engineers and that we have a list and I think it's going to be, you'll be surprisingly pleased with what we come up with. So hopefully.
The discussions have not been happening and we don't have fairly detailed ideas already.
Break ground in anything, but the comment that we have till the end of 2024. Oh, yeah, right. No, I got it.
Is there any new business to come before us? A motion to adjourn.
So moved.